Professor Gabor. Today I want to talk about how to draw supply and demand curves in Excel. This is a problem that was in Homework 3 in undergraduate microeconomics class. Demand and supply in the market for cheddar cheese is illustrated in table 3.9, which is right here. Graph the data of the equilibrium. Next, graph the table showing the change in quantity demanded or change in quantity supply, and a graph of the new equilibrium in each set of the following situations. The price of milk, a key input for cheese production, rises so that the supply decreases by 80 pounds at every price. A new study indicates that eating cheese is good for your health, so that demand increases by 20% at every price. So we can then go to part A, and we can go to part B, and I can calculate those things. But first thing I want to look at is my base case. And here I don't need to do a graph. I will do a graph, but we can see that the equilibrium point is right there at $3.40. The quantity demanded is 650 pounds of cheese, and at the quality supply is also 650 pounds. Okay, so let's copy this table, at least part of this table down. Copy, paste. Now what do I want to do? I want to probably change some things around. The equilibrium point I'm going to get rid of, because I don't know what that is anymore. And I can have no fill. And what changes in the first one? So that the quantity supply decreases by 80 pounds. Well, that means this data is no good anymore, quantity supply. So if I start at the top and I say it's equal to what it used to be minus 80 pounds, it now is 460, and I have a new supply chart. So if I want, I can say, let me bold this up, make it bigger for part A, and now I see the equilibrium has moved up 10 cents. So I can highlight that in yellow. So the new equilibrium price is 360, and the quantity has gone down. The price has gone up, quantity has gone down, as we would expect it to do. In the next case, part B, we're going to copy the original chart again. Copy, paste, and now in this case, we know that equilibrium is probably going to change, so we want to get rid of that highlight. But now the quantity demanded is going to change. And it says a new study says that eating cheese is good for your health, so the demand increases by 20% at each price. So here is my previous price. It's the same whether I go here or to the original chart, but let's go to the original chart just to maintain integrity in the process here and be consistent with the previous one. And now instead it's 20%, so I want to multiply it by 1.2, which is 120%. And I made it, I think I'm in Europe. Because I use the comma as a decimal place. So it changed that to 900. And if I copy this down, it changes all this. Now, what happens here is I see my price has gone up and my quantity has gone up. So if I highlight this at the equilibrium point, I see a price of 380 and 720. Now the problem also asks you to graph it. Well, getting a graph first off is pretty easy. You might want to go here and you want to say insert, and it says recommended charts, and there's a supply and demand, but we're not going to use that. I mean, first of all, notice that the price is on the x-axis and the quantities are on the y-axis, which is backwards. And we're going to want to change it. And this particular chart is hard to change. We're going to use a different chart to do this, or a different graph to do this. So I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to keep the same thing, but I'm going to go Insert, and now I'm going to say, let's insert a scatter diagram, and let's use these lines. So I get my chart right there. Well, now it looks different because it's really smaller, but it goes from 0 to 450 along the x, which is the price. It's in the wrong spot. And it goes from 0 to 800, which is the quantity on the y-axis. And I want to flip those if I can. It's easier to flip it with a scatter diagram in this format than before. And then I want to get rid of all this space so that the graph can be bigger, like we're used to seeing normally. So the first thing I do is click on the chart. I've clicked on the chart. And I want to format, not to format the chart area, I want to select data. So I go here and it says, great, I've got my QD, my quantity demanded, and I got my quantity supplied. So let's do one at a time. Quantity demanded. And it tells me here, where's the name of the chart? Where's the name of those? And it says QD. I want to leave that alone. But now it's got the X's and Y's backwards. So what I want to do is click on this part and go here and delete that. And the Y values are now going to be the price. And I say enter. Now, and then I go here and the Y values are, oh, I did it backwards because I'm not paying attention. I want my Y values to be, yes, I want the Y values to be the price. Let's confuse everybody. I'm getting X's and Y's confused. This is really good. You're going to love this. You can laugh at me. It's hilarious. I should probably start and do it all over again, but I probably won't. X values. It's X values. Delete it. My X values are now quantity. When I do that, I see I have the X values and Y values are the same. It's not going to be very interesting. I got to change my Y values now to price. I change them to price. I hit enter. Then I go to my quantity supplied. And I do the same thing. And this time I can probably do it without making a mistake. If I look at where the label is, it's quantity supplied. That's good. If I go to my X values, I will want to get rid of that. And for my X values, I want to have the quantity supplied actually. I'll enter it. And then for my Y values, I want to have, let's delete that. Let's put new ones in. Yes, I know. I want to put the price again. I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to leave it as is. And I'm going to say OK. Now change the chart around. I've got my quantity down here and I've got my price up there, but I still have way too much space that's wasted in here in this chart. So what I want to do is click on each axis. And if I then double click on it, and I can say format axis. There's a minimum. The maximum of 800 is probably good, but the minimum should probably be about 500. That's good. And I do the same thing for the y-axis. What do I want to do? I want to format the axis. And what does that do? I don't want a minimum of 0. I probably want a minimum of 250 seems like a good one. Oh, there I have my chart. And I could call this cheddar cheese supply and demand And we can call it the base case. And if I want to add what this is, that this is price, I could add that. Or if I wanted to add, I could go here to, I could click on the chart, and if I wanted, I could go to insert. Well, if I just click on this, sorry, start again, chart design. And if I go here to add chart element, I could add axis titles, primary. I could add to the axis titles vertical, and I could call that price, and I could call this quantity. And there you go. There's my supply and demand. There's the equilibrium point. If I look at it, it says 650 and 340. Yay, good for us. So we've done this. Now I probably want to do it for the next one. Hopefully I can do it much quicker. And what do? I say insert. I don't want to go to recommended charts. I want to go to scatter diagram, and I want to add the one with the lines. And you see I have the same issue. So now, to change this chart around, what do I want to do? I want to double click on, and I want to select data. And when I go to data, I know that my labels are in the right place. I'm going to leave those alone, but I'm going to change my X and Y. So in this case, if I go to X, I want to make my X my quantity now. And I hit enter. And I want to make my Y, click on that little button on the right, my price, good for me. Much easier than the first time I did it. And I don't know if all the mistakes I made the first time were to show that I make the same kind of mistakes you could make doing this, or that I'm just lazy to re-record it. And it's probably a combination of both. So now I go to the quantity supplied, and again I go to the X, and I want to make the quantity supplied the X part, enter, and I want to make the quantity demanded the price. And then I hit enter. Why is there a problem with the new formula? I don't know why. Let's do it again. Yes, I understand. Let's get rid of it. And we just want the price. And hit enter. So somehow extra stuff got in there, and I say okay. And let me move this over a little bit. So when I hit OK, you can watch this change. And it flipped. It's the same as kind of before. I have too much space, so what do I want to do? I want to do the same thing I did last time. I want to change it to now 400. And if I double click on it, I could say I'm not double clicking on the axis. If I click on the axis values, I could say format axes, and over here I can just format it. Now if I don't want to have 500, I really would like to have 400, because remember the values moved a little bit. And there we go. Now on the y-axis I do the same, double click, format axes, and now I think 250 still works here. So I go to 250, and I see, okay, this is pretty good. Maybe I'm not happy with this. I want to go and change my title a little bit. And what do I want to call it? Cheddar cheese, supply and demand. geez, supply and demand. Supply shift minus 80 pounds. Okay. So maybe I'll make this bigger this way. Maybe I'll make this equally bigger so they're about the same size. But I notice this starts at 400, this one starts at 500. I can't really see, I can't see the shift the way I maybe want to see it. Maybe I want to change this one, format axis, and maybe I'll change it to 400. So you see the curve here is the same, and we went from 250 to 410 in both cases. But it still doesn't look the same. That's because I don't have price and quantity. So let me add those. So if I go to chart here, and I go to chart design, and I go to add element, and axis titles primary horizontal, add titles primary vertical. Now it's starting to look the same, and you can see the shift in supply goes from here and it goes that way. Of course, you could probably graph it on the same graph, but that's not what was asked in this problem. So this is price, and this is quantity. Quantity. So there you have it. I'll let you do the last one so you can get practice. Thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.